Okay, so welcome everybody. It's really not an easy time. Klal Yisrael is really going through a difficult time. So you know that I've mentioned this many times, and I'm going to repeat myself because there is no limit to how many times this needs to be repeated. We're davening for Klal Yisrael. We're praying for the hostages. So we just begin this year with a prayer that HaKadosh Baruch Hu should first of all protect the soldiers. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu should protect the hostages, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu should protect all the residents of Israel and all the Jews around the world. And Bezrat Hashem, very soon everybody will come back home and will be Zochet Tchias HaMeisim. As I mentioned previously, that oftentimes the only Nechama, the only consolation that could be given is that there will be a time when Tchias HaMeisim, the resurrection of the dead, will arrive, and then everybody will be Zochet to see their loved ones coming back. And I mentioned the story previously that I had a friend who lost a daughter, and I wanted to console him. I didn't know what to say, and I told him, I said, you know something, when somebody loses a loved one, what one must remember is that as painful as it is, the person hasn't disconnected from the loved one. The person has said bye to the loved one has gone away for a limited amount of time. There will be a time, then our mouths will be filled with laughter because families will come back together, people will get to see the loved ones that they had not seen for so long. And that's the only thing that could really console a person when he loses a loved one, especially under these tragic circumstances. And the people who have given up their lives for the defense of the Jewish people, they are on a higher level. They are on the level of great tzaddikim because they gave their lives for Klal Yisrael. And just to briefly address the tragic incident with the 3 hostages that were killed, obviously we believe that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God let that happen. We have a belief as Orthodox Jews, that's what we're taught, that everything happens from a divine source. HaKadosh Baruch Hu orchestrates things from behind the scene, even when we don't see it. And it's easy to fall into the bitter blame game. That person is at fault, this person is at fault. If only the soldier would have been a bit more precautious, if he would have waited a second. The truth is that we say, Hakol b'dei Shamayim, everything is in the hands of Hashem, chutz mi'yirat Shamayim, with the exception of the Av Hashem. But otherwise, a person is predetermined. There are things that we can control with our Bechira, but obviously this was not something that depended on Bechira because it happened in the spur of the moment. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted, HaKadosh Baruch Hu certainly could have given the peace of mind, who could have put the soldier in a state of mind that would have saved the lives of these 3 hostages. So this is something that was determined in Rosh Hashanah, as we learn in the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah, that the union of the HaKadosh Baruch Hu determines who will live, who will die. So therefore, we have to come with an attitude of emunah, an attitude of faith in God. And as I said, the idea is that these people that died under these tragic circumstances will come back. There will come a time for Tchias HaMeisim and they will join us. Okay, so that's what we need to keep in mind. It saves us from falling into the bitter name game. Okay, so I wanted to just talk about a little bit of this week's parasha. Yosef HaTzadik is somebody from whom we can learn. Okay, personally, I'd like to share and tell you that if I had to ask who would be my role model, and I would tell you that my role model would be Yosef HaTzadik. Okay, now just put yourself in the shoes of Yosef. Okay, he did everything that HaKadosh Baruch Hu asked of him to do. He was the role model. He was somebody who lived exactly as God expected a person to live. His father Yaakov says, "Go to your brothers." He listens without questioning his father. The Mesiras Nefesh, with a great deal of self-sacrifice, he goes to his brothers, knowing that his brothers might harm him. He never imagined that his brothers would sell him down into Egypt, or that his brothers would attempt to kill him. Had he known that, Yosef HaTzadik certainly would not have gone, because there is no obligation for one to give up his life in order to perform the mitzvah of Kivud Av. But still, he knew that going there might get him hurt, might get him harassed, and he went anyways with a great deal of self-sacrifice. He comes, we all know the story, Okay, that he comes and his brothers sell him. There's a joke, that you've probably all heard this joke anyways, but there is a joke that, his wife used to go to shul every year and she used to cry. She used to cry when she used to hear the story of the brothers selling Yosef. By the way, the great Rosh Hashiva of the Mir, Reb Chaim Shmulevitz, he was a very emotional person. And it was known that when he got an aliyah, every week in the yeshiva, when it came to the parsha that we read last week, when he would get the aliyah and they would read from the Torah how the brothers sold Yosef into Egypt, they had to interrupt the lady because he used to break down and cry. Okay, so there was a very emotional person. Reb Chaim Shmulevitz would literally cry and weep every single time they would get up to the episode of the brothers selling Yosef. I remember that when I came to the OU, so Rabbi Goldvich mentioned that when Rabbi Herschel Schachter should be well, the great posik of Rosh Hashiva, Yeshiva University, Yitzchak Elchanan, also a very influential rabbi in the OU. So Rabbi Goldwich mentioned that when Rabbi Herschel Schachter came to Eretz Yisrael, it was the middle of the Intifada. A lot of people were dying, a very tragic episode in Israeli history. And when Rabbi Herschel Schachter got up to read the Haftarah of Nachamu Ami, he literally broke down and cried for a full minute. They could not continue reading the Haftarah. So these were the Gedolei Yisrael, the great tzaddikim, the righteous people of Am Yisrael. They used to really feel the pain of their fellow Jews, and that really is the hallmark of a great person. Right? A person could learn lots of Torah. Torah is extremely important, but Torah has to be learned with the right midot. Torah has to be learned with the right character traits. There's a Gra in Evan Shleima, the video of Vilna, the famous Vilna Gaon. So in his Sefer Evan Shleima, which is really a collection of his teachings, his ethical teachings. So in the first chapter there, in the 11th Seif, in the 11th section of the first chapter, he says that Torah is compared to rain. We read in the Parsha of Hazinu that Moshe Rabbeinu says about the Torah, Ya'arov k'matar duchi, let my teachings fall like rain. So he says, why is the Torah compared to rain? He says the rain causes plants to grow. However, it depends what type of plant grows, depends on how you plant the seed. If you plant a poisonous plant, so then the rain will make a poisonous plant grow. If you plant a plant that's good, that has medicinal benefits, then that's the plant that will grow. He says it's the same thing when it comes to learning Torah. Right? The Torah is like rain. The Torah empowers a person, it increases, it gives more power, gives more potency to the midot, the character traits that a person has. So the Gra tells us that if somebody has, let's say, hatred in his heart, because hatred is the worst midah, hatred is the worst character trait, or ga'ava, arrogance. So if God forbid somebody has hatred or arrogance in his heart, when he learns the Torah will only make his arrogance more. The Torah will make his hatred more. So therefore, if a person has bad character traits and he learns Torah, the Torah will make him even more evil, right? Because it's like rain. So he says, before we learn Torah, a person has to increase his love for Am Yisrael. The best preparation for learning Torah is to increase your love for fellow Jews. He says, so this way, when you learn the Torah, you will love Jews even more. Okay? If a person, let's say, is in awe of Hashem. So if a person learns the Torah will be like rain. The Torah will increase his awe of Hashem. So therefore, the Gra says that there's an obligation before a person learns Torah for a person to do a bit of a soul search, for a person to do an inner accounting to see if there's hatred in his heart, if there's arrogance in his heart, and to get rid of that arrogance, to get rid of that hatred, replace that with love for the Jewish people, and then the Torah will increase, the Torah will strengthen the good character traits that you have inside. So Torah is the most important mitzvah, but Torah is unlike other mitzvahs. Okay, unlike other mitzvahs that if you give tzedakah, so you get reward for giving tzedakah. But Torah is different. Torah is the greatest mitzvah, but only if you make sure to get rid of the arrogance of your heart, to get rid of the hatred in your heart, to increase your love for Am Yisrael. So that's why Torah is different than other mitzvahs. Torah is like rain. Okay? So therefore, the hallmark of the Gedolei Yisrael, the hallmark of the righteous people of the Jewish people was their love for the Jewish people. Okay? Okay? There are many people that knew the entire Torah. You have people that knew the entire Talmud by heart. They knew all of the Chumash, all of the Nach by heart. They knew everything by heart. But they weren't Gedolei Yisrael. They weren't Tzaddikim. They weren't righteous people because there was a problem with their Midot. There was a problem with their character traits. So you need to find in each of the Gedolei Yisrael, people like Rabbi Herschel Schachter, Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, and other Lubavitch Rebbe, other great men, was the care that they had for the Jewish people. They cared for the Jewish people, and all the Torah that they learned made them care even more for the Jewish people. Okay, there was a great Kabbalist, I'm sure you've all heard of him, the Ramchal, Rabbi Moshe Chaim Lutzato. He wrote the famous Mesilas Yesharim you've all heard of. So the Ramchal had a group of people that used to learn Torah together, and one of the conditions to get into this group of people learning Torah is that you had to commit, that you make a declaration before Hashem that all the Torah that you learned would go for the benefit of Am Yisrael. A person would say, I don't want to get any benefit from this Torah learning. I want this Torah learning only to benefit Am Yisrael. And that was the condition in order to get into the inner sanctum of the Ramchal learning. Okay? So in that vein, I also want to make the declaration. I also want to stipulate that all the Torah that we're learning on this Zoom share, I shouldn't get any personal benefit from it, and that it should only go for Am Yisrael. It should go for the good of the soldiers. It should go for the good of the hostages. It should increase the health of Am Yisrael. It should increase the wealth of Am Yisrael. It should make people more pure, more loving. Okay, so that's my stipulation. That's our stipulation. The Torah that we're learning is not to promote a personal agenda. It's not to get more money. It's not to get more prestige. The only reason why we're learning Torah is for the good of Klal Yisrael, because we say in the beginning of the Torah, Bereshit, the Rashi there says, B'shvil Yisrael shenikra Bereshit. There's an allusion there on the word that the entire Torah is really for the sake of the betterment of the Jewish people. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us the Torah so that Am Yisrael should be united, so that Am Yisrael should be living in peace, that Am Yisrael should love each other, that Am Yisrael should be enjoying the radiance and the warmth and the love of the Creator. That's really the matara, that's really the purpose of the Torah. So if a person is learning the Torah and he really wants to do it to promote a personal agenda, he wants to learn the Torah so he should have more prestige or more money. So what happens is that the Torah is not only is the Torah not beneficial, the Torah is actually destructive. There is even a Gemara in Shabbat, 88b, Pechet Amud. You can all look at this Gemara in tractate Shabbat, a very important Gemara. The Gemara says that the Torah is Lemaminim, which means the people that do it with the right hand. The right hand is symbolic of positive, of rachamim. As you all know, the basic Kabbalistic wisdom teaches us that the right is symbolic of kindness, of mercy. Okay, the left is dim, right? The left has a more negative connotation. So in a sort of symbolic sense, the Gemara in Shabbos Peches on the base says that the Torah, the people who go with the right hand, the people who are motivated out of love and compassion for Am Yisrael, the people that really care to bring more goodness into the world and more love into the world and more peace into the world. So the Torah becomes a Sam HaChayim. The Torah becomes a drug of life. The Torah will bring peace, and the Torah will bring all good things into the world. At the same time, the Gemara there says the Masneilim, the people that use it in the symbolic idea of the left, which means to say for selfishness or for arrogance, the Torah becomes a Sam HaMavet. It becomes even worse. The Torah will make the person even more arrogant, as we explained. So really this idea of the Gra who compares the Torah to the rain, meaning to say that the rain will make whatever plant you put in the ground grow more, meaning to say it will make your good character trait stronger. But God forbid it could also make the bad character trait smaller. It's already written there explicitly in the Talmud, in the Gemara in Shabbos Peches on the days, through this idea of Sam HaChayim. The Torah could either be a drug of life for you, or the Torah could be a Sam HaMavet. So therefore it's important to emphasize this, because if sometimes people will see somebody who learns lots of Torah, and they say, how could it be that this person who learns so much Torah, how can he be arrogant? How can he speak disrespectful? Isn't he a Talmid Chacham? Isn't he somebody that learns lots of Torah? So they might see, okay, there's something wrong with the Torah. Not at all. There's nothing wrong with the Torah. In fact, it's the Torah itself. The pasuk in Parshas Hadinu that we mentioned, the Gemara in Shabbos Peches Amevei, that on the contrary tells us, just a moment. So this was I wasn't able to, I had to give it here in the hotel. So I was doing the Zoom share in a meeting, so in a meeting room, and then the meeting room was taken, so I had to move. So my apologies. So basically, as we were saying previously, I'll just mention the story about Kfar Mamon, that there was a helicopter that was flying over the Gaza region, and the terrorists shot the helicopter down, and the helicopter actually had 20 commandos inside of it. So basically, if I understood correctly, that the helicopter had to crash land in a Kfar Mamon. They had to jump out of the helicopter, and they saved the entire yeshuv. Okay, so they were saved by the mercy of Hashem. They're all here. They've been here for already 2 months. It's a reminder that many Jews, many residents of Israel are still not living in their homes. So I live in Yerushalayim. I'm lucky enough to have my own home. I never had to change homes, but coming here is a good reminder that we still have a lot to pray for, and to think about all the people that are still not going to their homes, people that still have to live in a temporary place. So B'ezras Hashem, as I said, that our intention is that the Torah should be nothing but a conduit to bring Hashem's goodness into the world. It should be a conduit to bring more peace into the world, more tranquility into the world, and hopefully this should also be a schus that all the displaced people in Eretz Yisrael should go back to their homes very soon. So as I said, the Ribba is a drug of life for those people that purify the hearts. So that's why one of the things that the Gra taught to us, the Gaon of Vilna taught to us, was that before a person begins to learn, a person should do whatever he can to increase the love for OUisrael, to increase somebody hates. So learning that you're upset about, or somebody that you're in a quarrel with. Before learning Torah, think about the person, think of some way to be down the person like conflict, which means try to find some way of judging that person favorably, even if that person did something wrong, but see if perhaps you can think of some way to judge that person favorably. So they were great in Torah, but the more defining feature, aside from their greatness in Torah, was the love for they had for the Jewish people. And it was all the Torah that they learned that became a conduit, that became a tool to increase their love for OUisrael. A person is allowed to, another thing that a person can do for OUisrael, as I said, it's very, very important to let go of grudges. There was a great story, you probably all heard the story once before, that Rabbi Chaim Shmulevitz that I talked about before. So he was inside of a bunker when the bombs were falling, I believe in 48. The Jordanians were shelling Jerusalem, and everybody was praying in the bunker. Everybody was praying for the salvation of OUisrael. Everybody was saving. Everybody was praying intensely that they should be saved. And there was one woman there, right? A broken woman whose husband very sadly abandoned her. Her husband left her, and left her in a guna. Okay, we all know what a guna is. A guna is a woman that is unable to remarry because her husband has gone missing. So she said to the Rabbi Shalom, she put her eyes upwards to the ceiling, and she started to speak to Hashem. And she said to Hashem, she said, "Look, my husband left me in a guna for many years, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you are the only one that could appreciate the degree of suffering that I experienced. Hashem, I'm willing to forgive him wholeheartedly and to bear no more grudge. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu, just as I am forgiving somebody who had done to me something very terrible, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you can also forgive your children if they did anything wrong." And Rabbi Chaim Shmulevitz said that he has no doubt in his mind that that woman's statement was more powerful than all the prayers of the Mir Yeshiva put together. Okay? So you see what the power of being able to forgive, the power of being able to forget. And that's why another thing that we can do is that if there's somebody that did something wrong to us, if there's somebody who really did something they should not have done to us, but if we might not be able to get to the level of that woman in the bunker who was able to totally forgive a man that had caused her to be in a guna for so many years. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu may not expect us to be at that awesome level, However, what we are able to do is say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I'm trying to forgive that person. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that person did something wrong for me. Hashem, I'm going to try to be danim l'kav sus. I'm going to try to find some sort of way of giving him or her the benefit of the doubt. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I'm making the attempt to forgive somebody that did something wrong to me. Hashem, I would like you also to please forgive your children. I'd also like that you should bring a salvation to the Jewish people. Okay? So that's something that everybody can do. And it's actually be a very great merit for OUisrael. So getting back to my story that I began with quite a while ago, before we lost the connection. So basically, Rav Chaim of Shmulevitz used to cry every single time he read about the brothers selling Yosef. That's how emotional he was, and that's how much he cared about it. That's how much he actually lived and experienced everything that he heard from the Torah. Everything that he heard from the Torah was a real experience for him. It was something that he actually lived and something that he felt. So there was a story, a joke that they say, that there was a woman who also used to cry every year when she used to hear about how the brothers sold Yosef HaTzadik into slavery. So one year she didn't cry, so she came home and the husband says, how come you're not crying? Every single year you cry. So she said, you know something? Every year Yosef goes back to those boys. He should remember what happened last year. He should remember what happened 2 years ago. If he didn't remember this time, I can't cry for him anymore. Okay? So that's the joke. Okay? But anyways, so the idea is that I was talking about the greatness of Yosef. The greatness of Yosef was unbelievable. Okay? So he's sold by his brothers. He's a boy who never did anything wrong in his life. Okay? He did do something wrong because he complained to his fathers. Was Reb Chaim the Rosh Yeshiva? Yes, Reb Chaim was the Rosh Yeshiva of the Mir Yeshiva. That is correct. So basically, he was the Mir Yeshiva also when the Mir Yeshiva was in Shanghai. But I don't know if he was the Rosh Yeshiva, but he was definitely an important rabbi there when the yeshiva went to Shanghai. So basically, getting back to the story of Yosef, Chazal, the rabbis, the sages tell us that he did do something wrong. He spoke Lashon Hara about the brothers. However, Chazal also teach us that Yosef HaTzadik really had no bad intention when he spoke Lashon Hara to his father. When he spoke Lashon Hara to his father, he had hoped that his father would rebuke them. He hoped that his father would put them back on a better path. But in any case, perhaps he could have said the Lashon Hara, perhaps he could have given the bad report in a different way. In any case, overall, Yosef HaTzadik was somebody that was extremely righteous, but somebody that overall did not do any averis, he did not do any sins, and yet he's being kidnapped by his brothers. He's being sold into Egypt. At the time, if somebody became a slave in Egypt, he never was redeemed from slavery. He remained a slave forever. All right, we have lots of competition here, okay? Some music here. So anyways, if somebody became a slave in Egypt, so he had no chance whatsoever, right? There was a zero chance for the person to ever be redeemed from slavery. So Yosef was in the most helpless situation that a human being could ever find himself in, okay? So just imagine a brother who was taken by, a person who was taken by his brothers and was subjected to the greatest the worst possible situation that a person could ever find himself in. What happens? Yosef HaTzadik is seduced by the wife of Potiphar, and after superhuman strength, he resists the temptation. Okay, and despite his resistance, besides his heroic attempt, thanks to his heroic efforts, as a direct result of his great mitzvah, cast this to 12 years in prison. Now, I promise you that if I was in Yosef HaTzadik's situation, I would become very angry and I would become very bitter with Hashem. I said, Hashem, I never did a sin. Hashem, what did I do to deserve my brother selling me into Egypt? Hashem, what did I ever do that I should be thrown into prison for 12 years? On the contrary, after having done one of the most heroic things ever in the history of mankind, this is the way you treat me, Hashem. This is what happens to me, Hashem. I end up being thrown in prison for 12 years, and yet Yosef HaTzadik was able to hold on to his emunah. So when a person finds himself in difficult times, when a person cannot understand Hashem, how could this be fair? Hashem, how could it be I did a mitzvah and now things are getting worse? A person should remember Yosef HaTzadik. Yosef HaTzadik resisted the temptation that was presented by the wife of Potiphar, and for 12 years he sat in prison. But eventually Yosef HaTzadik held steadfast. Yosef HaTzadik was able to hold on to his emunah, and we know the rest of the story. We know that Yosef became the viceroy of Egypt for 80 years. Okay? So therefore, if a person ever finds himself in difficult times, if a person feels he did the right thing and bad results happen, a person could always strengthen himself by reminding himself what happened to Yosef HaTzadik. It can draw strength. And the greatest hallmark of Yosef HaTzadik was his ability to forgive the brothers. That superhuman ability to forgive the brothers that had done the worst possible thing. And again, it was through the power of Yosef's emunah that it was Hashem's doing. He said, Ki Hashem shlachani, Hashem sent me down into Egypt. So that's another way to draw strength to forgive. Yosef HaTzadik had the greatest emunah that any person could ever have. And Yosef HaTzadik was able to draw from that power to forgive and forget. So therefore, if a person somebody did something wrong to you, somebody wronged you, the way to draw strength to forgive the person is to remind yourself what Yosef HaTzadik said. Yosef had been sold into Egypt, and the reaction of Yosef HaTzadik was, it wasn't you, it was Hashem, and it was for the good. So anything that anybody ever did wrong to you, please remember that it's for your good. It'll lead you to somewhere better. It will lead you to somewhere more powerful. And in fact, the Kabbalist teaches us, this is based on the Ramban, by saying Gamzu L'Tova, there's a section of the Shulchan Aruch, Reish Lamed, 130 in Orach Chaim. The Shulchan Aruch teaches us that there's a halacha that whenever something bad happens, whenever something undesirable happens, you should go in the footsteps of Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva always used to say, Kol man da'avar rachman l'tav avad. Whatever Hashem does is for the best. So this is actually a halacha that's codified in the Shulchan Aruch, that constantly a person should always be saying Kol man da'avar rachman l'tav avad. And the Kabbalists, based on the Ramban, teach us that by saying Kol da'avar rachman l'tav avad, you will expedite the good result of whatever happens. So if something bad happens to you, it's going to lead to something good. But if you want that good to come sooner, if you want to expedite the outcome of that good, the way to do it is to say, Kol man da'avar rachman l'tav avad. Say, speak it out. It's good to think it, it's even better to say it. Whatever Hashem does is for the best. If you get into the habit of constantly saying whatever Hashem does is for the best, that will cause the good outcome to come sooner. And that will also empower us to forgive others. And when we forgive others, Hashem will forgive Am Yisrael. So what we need to do now is we need to draw on the well springs of Amunah. What happened down in Gaza, that the soldiers were dying and that the hostages were killed. Right now it's really the worst thing. Really now it's terrible. And now we really do need to feel the pain of Am Yisrael. But we have to appreciate that there will come a time in history, we will get to a certain place when we will be able to appreciate that all of these terrible things are really for the good. When there's the Tchias HaMesim, when there's the resurrection of the dead, and these people that were killed will come back to us, when these people will join us again and we'll be able to rejoice together, we will be able to look back in hindsight and say that the death of those hostages was for the best, right? The terrible loss of life in Gaza was for the best. Maybe that's not what we have to feel now. Now we need to cry. Now we need to share the pain and the loss that the families are experiencing. But we're allowed to know, and we're allowed to envision a day that will come in history when those deceased people will be coming back, and that we will appreciate that in the long run of things, in the big scheme, everything that happened was for the best. So again, as I said, by fulfilling this dictum that's instructed in the Shulchan Aruch to say, Kol man da'avar rachman l'tav avad, that whatever Hashem does is for the best, we have the power to expedite that good outcome. We have the power to bring that outcome sooner. And we also have the power to forgive. And forgiving is what we need to do now, because when we forgive others, we can come to Hashem and we can say, Hashem, we forgave somebody that did something bad to us. Now Hashem, please do your part and forgive the Jewish people and bring the Geula, bring the redemption. So basically, in summary, I'm going to finish up with this. A lot of competition here. The idea and the takeaway for the shir is number one, before we learn Torah, increase the love of Am Yisrael. Before learning Torah, do what the Arizal did. The Arizal said, I'm a kabbalah on myself. I accept upon myself the mitzvah of a. Do that every time you learn Torah. Say, Hashem, I want this Torah to go for the good of Am Yisrael. I want this Torah to be for the salvation of Am Yisrael. Number one. Number two, okay, learn to forgive. Think of Yosef HaTzadik. Think how Yosef HaTzadik was able to believe. Yosef HaTzadik was able to hold on to the Amunah that everything that happens is for the good, and he used that to forgive others. Number three, when you forgive others, you tell Hashem, Hashem, I forgave somebody that did something wrong to me. Hashem, I want you to forgive your children so that we can bring the Geula and we can bring the redemption. So with that, we'll finish. So I thank everybody that joined us, and again, I apologize about the noise and the interruptions. But as I said, Gamzula Tova, this is also for the best. Okay? Now, if you want, as a compensation for all interruptions, you can listen to a bit of the music that they're playing for the kids of Kfar Mamon. Okay, you hear what they're singing? They're singing Yisrael B'tach B'Hashem. They're singing that Hashem, that the Jewish people trust in Hashem. Eilanu l'shael ela el Avinu, Avinu shebashamayim. To listen. Okay, so Gamzula Tov, all the interruptions and noise was also for the best. And with that, I wish everybody a very wonderful night and a speedy recovery for the ill and a salvation for everybody that needs one.